It's Hall of Fame weekend, and we're celebrating Falcons future Hall of Famer Julio Jones on another Falcons Historian Player Shootout.
You are Locked On Falcons, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, everyone, to another illustrious episode of the Locked On Falcons podcast, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. With the playoffs winding down, the sports stop sporting like we want them to, but this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a booster bonus daily. That's right, there's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. So if you don't know me, I'm your very humble host, Aaron Freeman, a.k.a. Mr. Drew, a.k.a. Sirius Black, a.k.a. Mr. a.k.a. And I thank each and every one of you that is an everydayer of this podcast that makes it your first listen or first watch each and every day. To become an everydayer, all you have to do is subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. And we are back today with another Falcons Historian Player Shootout. We are almost there, guys, to the final. This is our trivia tournament that we've been running since June, talking about Falcons legends from the last 20 years. I'm here alongside my co-host, Allen Strk, covers the Falcons for the Falcoholic, former co-host of Locked On Falcons and the Falcon Fans podcast, RIP. And we, of course, are asking trivia questions about Falcons legends, and we have one of the legends, in the conversation for the greatest player to ever put on an Atlanta Falcons uniform. We are talking about Julio Jones. Yes, he is on the wall of GOATs. Only GOATs go on this wall. You got Toff, you got Aaron Donald, you got Julio Jones, the greatest of all time. And we're talking about Julio Jones today. And our two contestants that will be put on the hot seat to answer and show their Julio Jones knowledge will, of course, be Will McFadden of AtlantaFalcons.com. Will has been very impressive so far in this trivia tournament. He'll be facing against another impressive contestant, that is David Schiele, who covers the Tampa Bay Bucks for Channel 10 down in Tampa. And, of course, is a GSU alum and has been talking mad trash throughout this thing. He's on a mission. He's trying to, get back at Falcons Twitter because, they I don't know. He's got a personal vendetta against Falcons Twitter. And so he's out here to prove all the haters, all the doubters wrong. And we'll see if he can do that tonight, talking Julio with Will and Allen. But my friends, welcome back to the show. Allen, how are you doing tonight? And let's jump into this conversation talking about, one of the greatest of all times, one of the GOATs for the Atlanta Falcons and Julio Jones.
It's a special episode. We're not wasting time here. Julio Jones, just Mr. Atlanta. I don't know if he's known for that. Like, I was watching Julio videos today. They said in high school they called him Waffle House because he's always open. I thought that was a hell of a nickname. And just looking back at his highlight reel, sometimes with players, you get like a 5 or 10 minute highlight reel. It's like, okay, I got everything I can see. With Julio, it's like you want to spend 45 minutes because it's endless. Going back to 2011, like just to set the tone, that Colts game in particular, where Matt Ryan, which kind of became somewhat of a staple in their career, Matt Ryan just throwing it up into double, triple coverage, and Julio somehow coming down with it. I think that kind of set the blueprint for the next decade. And then from there, he just took off. I thought 2012, he really set the tone. And then by, I would say, 2014, kind of proved to be that number one receiver that we all expect him to be. I want to kick it to Will first because, Will, you've had experience covering the Falcons while Julio was there. Do you have any personal stories about Julio in terms of interviewing him? And looking back on it, what do you take away from his career?
Just in terms of kind of being around him, he really was, I think, the person that everybody thought that he was from the outside, right? Like this in kind of an era of when receivers are receiving kind of that diva label, right? And I think that's less so now because honestly, I think the public is a little more fun and willing to go along with it and like bragging on Twitter, bragging when you like kill somebody in Madden and like all these players play Twitch and all that stuff. Like it's just a little bit more fun. But back in the day when everybody was still labeling Chad Johnson as like a diva type of receiver, Julio always got the credit for not being that way. And that was so genuine. Like he was very quiet and smart and thoughtful as a player, but he did the little things that really would make you a better player. Like I just I think remember watching him at training camp and watching him in like practices late in November and December back in like 2017 when the Falcons are making a playoff push, and just seeing that the time even spent away from these like full team drills when maybe they would give him a rest day, he was practicing like one-handed catches on the sideline while like dragging his feet. Like it was just kind of like these crazy things that only the best receivers really, I think, are almost even allowed to practice because they're so good at everything else that it's like you've reached that pinnacle where now you can practice like the most difficult things. Obviously, his play on the field speaks for itself. I mean, like I've been thinking so much about his touchdown screen against the Philadelphia Eagles because they're going to be playing again this year in a primetime slot. Like that play is amazing. I'll remember it for the rest of my life. And that's quintessential Quintorris Lopez-Jones.
Let's go back to that draft night. Atlanta's not picking until the 20s. They had just been the number 1 seed in the NFC. And I'm like, Atlanta, we ain't picking for a while. Let me just go chill. I was at a friend's house and I was like, I'll just go kind of chill out. And then I get called into the room like, you need to come back in here right now. I was like, why? Like, what could have possibly happened in this draft? Come in the room. I see Julio Jones highlights. And I'm like, did we just get Julio Jones? And I just remember just getting so hyped. You saw the tape from his days in college, and you just knew that this guy was different. He was a difference maker. And I thought everybody else would be hyped. And I'll tell you what I really remember is more specifically Jamie Dukes on the NFL Network slamming Thomas Dimitroff, saying Atlanta gave up everything to get a receiver. Why would they do that? I can't believe it. Well, guess what? Atlanta won that trade. And now we're just waiting for Julio to retire so he can moonwalk into the Hall of Fame.
That's a great point. I was one of those people that was critical of the trade. I thought they gave up too much. I loved the player. I loved Julio at Alabama. He was one of my favorite players in that prospect. That was a 2011 draft where I wrote up like 300 profiles. But, questioning whether or not the Falcons gave up too much. And, I think you can certainly make an argument that in 2013 and 2014, the downside of that Mike Smith era, maybe they could have used some of those picks to shore up the roster then. But the Falcons made that trade because they were going all in on trying to win a Super Bowl, and they got literally 10 yards away from doing it. And the main reason why they got so close to the Super Bowl was Julio Jones. So I agree with you. In the end, they won that trade. Absolutely. One of the greatest receivers of all time. On the Mount Rushmore, him and Calvin Johnson are the two most explosive wide receivers to ever play the game. And the name of the game in the modern football was generating explosive plays. And to me, Julio Jones was an alien that would basically come down to earth for like 6 months out of the year, starting in training camp, be incredible, and then just disappear. Like, I don't know anything about Julio's personal life. He would, after the season, he would just go somewhere and like, does he have kids? Does he have a girl? What does he do? Where does he live? I have no idea any of those things. None of those.
The craziest camp story we ever got was a diamond earring that went to the bottom of the lake.
Yeah.
That was it.
He took a picture with a teddy bear, I remember.
I thought it was a squirrel, right? Like he took a picture.
Oh, it was a squirrel.
And the caption, his Instagram caption was me and a squirrel. Like that was it. Like that's all he did. Like I actually did a search to try to find some stuff, and Julio used to be semi-active on Facebook. Like he had an official Facebook page. And I remember at the end of the 2011 season, the only thing he posted was, "Do you guys think I should cut my hair?" Like that was it.
Nice.
Yeah.
The Carolina game, I think, was kind of his welcome to the NFL. I know the Colts game was his first real big explosive game, but the Carolina game was big because they were fighting for playoffs by the time. They were losing majority of that game, and Julio just exploded with like 2 long touchdowns, and it was just like, okay, he's here. And he's ended that 2011 season really strong. And that once 2012 hit, it was just boom.
Yeah.
Almost every week. But I love that Lions game on Saturday night where it seemed like the Falcons could do whatever they want. I'll never forget Ryan hitting I think it was just a straight goal ball to Julio. And Julio just got both his feet in, and he just crashed into like the board. But it couldn't have looked more smoother. And I was just like, all right, this guy's going to be the best receiver in the league. And then who could forget 2 years later, he just absolutely dominates Patrick Peterson, which I think is probably top 5 most satisfying Julio performances, just because that season was pretty forgettable, and Patrick Pearson was talking a lot. Just seeing Julio show who's the boss in a game of like the premier players was unforgettable.
That's his matchups against Peterson in college when they were at Alabama and LSU respectively was the main reasons why I became such a big fan of Julio going into that draft, because I just saw his game get elevated to another level. Like it was like, oh, okay, this guy's the best in the world. I'm going to punk this dude. And that was just something that Julio would constantly do.
I want to talk about Julio in 2015, 2016, because I feel like putting someone like Kyle Shanahan with him was like a cheat code. Will, what are some like your fondest memories from those 2 years where you saw Shanahan and Julio just put together magic?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the Carolina game, like that's the number one thing. Like both of them, if we want to be real, like the 2015 game, that Luke Kuechly catch may be my favorite Julio moment. Super Bowl aside, right? Because the catch in the Super Bowl is probably the number one Julio moment if we're being objective. But like that Kuechly catch is like something I'll never forget, not only because of what it meant in ruining like Carolina's perfect season, but in really like that kind of elevated Julio in like it primed him, I guess I should say, for the 2016 season about to come. And then that Carolina game when he got 300 yards and just absolutely torched everybody. It was just the apex of what he could be. And I feel like that's always just going to be, when I think of Julio Jones, it's going to be kind of like that 2012 to 2018 run, but 2016 is always probably going to be the first season I think about.
Well said. David, what were some of your favorite Julio plays? I feel like we should go around and just talk about them because there's like 20 of them you could go when looking back on it.
There's a million. There's a million.
Yeah.
Will, you were probably at this game too. I was in the press box for this one, but funny enough, I feel like whatever the questions are, the answer is probably against this team. Do you remember when Julio against Tampa Bay completely lost the cornerback and then laid out? I mean, he had to go like full laid out to get into the end zone. That's one of my favorites for sure, because I mean, he just like at that size, like you heard it a lot during his career, that size, that speed, that athleticism is not from this earth. Like that doesn't make sense. And so that's one of my favorites. I was at the game against Indianapolis, so like that's also one of my favorites. Like it was triple coverage, like so that's one of my favorites, of course. I do have someone gifted me a picture of Julio Jones' Super Bowl catch in a frame. So I do have that framed. That catch, of course, and I think there was another one that I'm trying to think of that was, another one of those, like, we don't try to talk about this game, but I mean, he snatched the ball out of Malcolm Butler's hands. Like he made Malcolm Butler look like a child. We don't talk about that game, but that play though is one of those, like, Julio is just built different, right? Like, come on, that's a grown man, and you just basically like snatched out of his hands as if he was like a 3-year-old who wasn't supposed to have a toy. Like that guy was so special. I
have one more nominee, and that would be the chase down tackle on the interception.
Yeah.
Like, it's not a catch by Julio, but when we wanted to talk about like this dude is not from, I believe it was against Tampa Bay, right, David?
The answer is always Tampa Bay. Like the answer is going to be like, if
it's like a lion chasing a gazelle.
Yeah. Whatever question you get, they tell you in seminary, hey, if you just answer Jesus for every question, you'll at least get a C. Here, if you just answer Tampa Bay, you're going to get at least 3 of them right. Like, he owned the Bucs, owned them.
I just want to mention Julio defensive moments. The hit on Jeff Heath in that 2018 game against Dallas, Bill Goldberg speared him to prevent a big overthrow from Matt Ryan that should have been intercepted. We're talking about Julio playing defensive back moments. I have to highlight that.
For me, like when I think of, there's a million iconic moments, but like I do go back to like those 2015, 2016 years where it just felt like that was Julio at his peak. And I remember in 2015 that I think was the opener against the Eagles, right? And he made Byron Maxwell. I think there's that picture, that famous picture of Byron Maxwell just kind of like staring up at the scoreboard, just like in utter shock because of how he had to, absolutely get destroyed by Julio. And there's so many corners in this league that were basically had the impossible. Coaches just set these guys up to fail when you really think about it. It's like, hey, go lock up this guy, and it's like, and then they would cut them the next week, and you're just like, yeah, man, what did you think was going to happen? Like that's exactly what was going to happen. That's on the coach. That's not on the player to deal with this centaur, as I think Robert Mays would always call Julio. And then the other one is from that same season, which is the Giants game, which was the following week.
I was going to mention this one.
Yeah,
he got the big catch at the end of he had a lot of spectacular catches in that game on like Prince Amukamara. And then like the Giants were like, okay, we're not going to play man coverage. We're always going to play zone. And Julio was doing this thing. And then in the fourth quarter, the Falcons need to drive down the field. The Giants are like, you know what? Let's play man coverage. And then this is what Matt Ryan did every time. It's like, oh, single high. Okay, we're going deep. And Julio just run down the field, catch that bomb, sets up, what ultimately is the game-winning touchdown. And sort of those were kind of the moments that I just remember so vividly of just like he was a true game wrecker in terms of like the chess match and how you had to manipulate your entire defensive game plan to basically say, we can't let this guy beat us. And then when we would have teams that would basically put game plans out there, like I remember the Seahawks, I think in 2017, they were like, hey, Richard Sherman and whoever the other cornerback was at that point in time, they'll be able to lock up Julio. And it was like, no, they can't. Like, why are you doing this, you terrible coaches? Like you've seen this man destroy defenses for a decade, and it's just like what, like every time, because I remember doing these podcasts with Allen, it was just like we would come on the podcast afterward, and I just like, this is a terrible game plan. Like you watch this man destroy so many teams. Like, why are you doing this to yourself? It's your fault that you lost this game to the Atlanta Falcons. You just had to do literally anything else, but you decided, hey, I'm just going to put this guy on man coverage, and we'll take our chances and see what happens. And it's like, okay. This is why you fail. This is why coaches are terrible.
You could put Ron Rivera on that list as well. Ron Rivera had his fair share of just questionable game plans against Julio. But I love that you mentioned the Giants one because that catch really prevented an interception. Like that was, I don't know how his body went. We talk about body and like ridiculous angles. That catch, you look it up. Oh man, insane. But we haven't mentioned one, and we can end it here because I know we want to get to the trivia portion. But how has nobody mentioned the NFC title game? Like I think peak Falcons football was that touchdown to start the second half where he just stiff-armed, I think it was Gunter, and it was just, you just felt the Georgia Dome absolutely explode, and just like, okay, the Falcons have officially arrived. They're going to the Super Bowl. So I think that's just one moment we have to highlight is that it can't get any better than this. We wish it did, but hey, we'll take what we got. And at least it was cool that the Georgia Dome got the best send-off imaginable.
Yeah.
And I want to mention, because Will, you were on, I think, the next day with us. Instead of talking about that moment, Aaron instead spent 5 minutes talking about a Matt Ryan throw that should have been picked off. The greatest win in Falcons history. And Aaron talks about chucking a bomb to Aldrick Robinson, and we spent 3 minutes on it, and we're just like, what are we doing?
I'm still apologizing for that. I'm still apologizing for that moment. I apologize, guys.
It's all right, Aaron. You get wrapped up in the moment, just like everybody.
I'm so pissed off for some reason about that one play.
Aaron got me that day too because Aaron, do you remember when Taylor Gabriel had like 2 quick fumbles, or he had like a drop pass and then he dropped like a pop pass, and I was like, man, they need to bench this dude if you're gonna do this in the NFC title game. And then Taylor had a catch later in the game, and Aaron was like, I'm glad we benched him. And I was like, all right, bro.
I think, we highlight level. I would say from like 2011 to 2019. I know in 2020 he had a couple moments, but then he suffered an injury. But 2011 and 2019, you want to watch a player just, oh man, Julio Jones, just highlight after highlight. It will just blow your mind. And yeah, absolute great. It was a pleasure watching him, and it's going to be a fantastic day when he goes in the Ring of Honor, from a Falcons standpoint. And then, that Hall of Fame, I don't really watch the Hall of Fame live, but I think most people in Atlanta will be watching the Hall of Fame live just to just hear that speech. It'll be cool to see Julio in that moment because someone who doesn't really say much. It'll be fascinating to see what he puts together. So.
Maybe he'll get Quavo to introduce him or something like that.
Gucci Mane. Or Roddy. Hey, Roddy was at camp recently. Will, did you see Roddy?
I did see Roddy yesterday. Yep, he was there.
How's he looking?
He looks the same, man. Like he is still in good shape, So, but yeah, no, saw him there. He seems to be doing really well.
I believe we're putting Will on the hot seat. Allen will be asking him 5 questions.
Love it.
And then I'll be asking David 5 questions. And as you guys have been watching this, all summer long, whoever comes away with the most correct questions moves on to the finals where they'll be facing Corey Woodruff. And we'll be talking about the other GOAT in Atlanta. Of course, that is none other than quarterback Matt Ryan, the greatest draft pick. And again, depending on which side of the Julio versus Matt Ryan argument you fall on, the other player that's the candidate for being the greatest player to ever put on a Falcons uniform. But we will get into Julio side of that argument as we continue today's Locked On Falcons Historian Player Shootout. Passion, drive, patience. It is the formula for winning championships, and it's also what's going to keep your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, and Julio Jones certainly had all 3, but eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers.
Julio Jones led the NFL in receiving yards twice. Will, name both seasons he did it in.
Oh, yes. I did look this up. Okay, good. I got the 2015 and 2018.
That is correct. Question 2. Who was the Panthers cornerback that got released from that game in 2016 where Julio put up 300 yards?
Yeah. Oh my God. I think it was James Bradbury.
That's incorrect. It was Benet Ben-Wickery.
That was the other one I was debating between. Yep.
But yeah, his career was never.
I just had to pick. I had to pick one. Yeah.
I was a fan of Benet Ben-Wickery, and then it all went to hell after that game.
Question 3. Besides Carolina, who were the other 2 opponents that Julio had 250 yards against?
Green Bay and Tampa Bay.
Wow, easy. Well done. I want to talk about the time that Green Bay game was so
Monday night.
And Lambeau, that team was so hopeless in 2014. They were going up against a powerhouse in Green Bay, and Julio just give me the ball. We're gonna make this competitive.
Yeah, we were down 30 points at halftime. I was drunk. I was at
a taco bar in Athens, Georgia, drinking margaritas on Monday night, watching that game. Jordy Nelson, Julio Jones. It was great. It was a classic. It's my finest Twitter moment, I think, just being completely wrecked for the second half of that game and just watching Julio take over that game.
Dave, you have any memories from that somehow memorable Monday night game?
I do. So the longest catch of that game. So at the time, I was at Hampton University before I was at Georgia State, and I was a radio producer, and I was producing a basketball broadcast we were doing that night. And so when Julio had that long catch and run, I was on the phone counting down the broadcasters for the basketball game. So I was 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. And they were like, what's wrong with this guy? What is with him? And I'm just watching Julio
put on
ESPN. So that's my finest memory from that night.
Yeah. That's epic. All right, question 4. Julio somehow managed not to score a touchdown in the first 7 games during the 2018 season. He proceeded to score a touchdown in 3 consecutive games after. Will, you got to name 2 of the 3 opponents he scored a touchdown against in 2018.
2018. Okay, so I was working with the team at this point. All right, 2018 season. So that was the year that they lost all their guys to injury.
Yes.
Philly and Carolina were the first 2 games that year. Oh, and then they started kind of making a run, and they got blown out by Cleveland, they lost in Cleveland, but Julio did score on a screenplay, and the game before that was Washington. So I'm going to say Washington and Cleveland.
Well done. That's correct. The other one was Dallas.
Okay.
Yeah. Quick story about the Washington game, because I was there. I'll never forget the whole sideline, literally ran to the end zone because they were waiting so long for Julio to score a touchdown, because I think it was early November. And you just saw everyone from the sideline just run into the end zone. It was one of the few real wholesome moments of that.
Yeah, Jake, that was the screen. Sorry, I got it wrong with the Cleveland one. That was Jake Matthews. Yeah, came out and had the block of his life in that moment because he wanted to get Julio a touchdown so badly.
Okay, final question. What did Julio Jones become the first receiver to accomplish in NFL history during the 2018 season?
He became the first during the 2018 season. He became the first with 3. Oh no, it's not 10. I know he became the quickest to 10,000 yards, but that wouldn't be the first. So your phrasing has me really thrown. Is it consecutive 100-yard games? It's because that was the year he went bonkers with those. Is that, I'm just going to say 6 straight 100-yard games.
It's incorrect. He was the first to gain 1,400 yards in 5 consecutive seasons from 2014 to 2018.
Damn.
Yeah.
He's good, man.
Yeah.
He's a good player.
It's semifinal. That was totally challenging. I think the only other receiver all time to have more 1,400-yard seasons was Jerry Rice, but Jerry Rice didn't do it 5 consecutive years. So Julio was the only one to do it 5 straight. Jerry Rice had 6, but it was spread out. But 3 out of 5 in the semis, that's very good.
Well, we'll see if David can get 3 or more to keep his hopes alive in this Falcons Historian Shootout as we wrap up today's Locked On Falcons. We are in the midst of the summer, and the summertime can kind of be a dead time from sports, but we're getting out of that dead time. Major League Baseball's going on. The Olympics are going on. You got, MLS, right? You got the upcoming NFL season and the NBA and NHL right around the corner. And FanDuel is going to help you out by hooking up all customers with a boost or bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Just visit FanDuel.com and you can make the most out of your summer. And you can make the most by, checking out the lines for upcoming preseason games where the Falcons are 1.5-point favorites against the Miami Dolphins. Did you get a little bit of cash from, the Bears-Texans Hall of Fame game? Well, you can get a little bit more by heading over to FanDuel.com and check out their odds for upcoming NFL preseason games, ongoing Olympic sports, right? You can play some prop bets for upcoming season awards. You think Kirk Cousins is going to win MVP, Raheem Morris, Coach of the Year, Michael Penix, Offensive Rookie of the Year, whatever you want. Head on over to FanDuel.com and make the most out of your summer. FanDuel is an official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. All right. Number 1, Julio Jones produced 1 double-digit touchdown season. Which year was that?
2012.
That is correct. Number 2, Julio Jones had 3 touchdowns of 70-plus yards against this team across his NFL career in 2011, 2015, and 2016. Who was the opponent?
Of 50 yards or more?
70.
Oh, Lord Jesus. 70 yards. Oh, it's got to be Carolina then.
That is correct.
Yeah.
See, I thought you were going to go Tampa Bay because you said all the answers are always Tampa Bay.
No. No, I said almost.
Number 3, Julio Jones caught 2 game-winning touchdown passes in 2019. Can you name both opponents?
Eagles, obviously. And Atlanta didn't win a lot of games in 2019. So it was Eagles and then Tampa Bay.
That is incorrect. The Eagles was correct. The other one was the 49ers.
Oh, that's right. And when when the clock ran out. That's right.
And then Olamide Zaccheaus recovered a
And then the
lateral
fumble
kick.
into the. I should have known that because Atlanta had no business winning that game.
Yeah. Pretty much.
Hey, it could be argued that win saved Dan Quinn's job for another year.
Definitely.
It did.
Definitely.
It did. And then they beat the Saints on the road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Number 4. 2019 marked a historic year for Jones, where he became the fastest receiver in NFL history to reach both 11,000 and 12,000 career receiving yards. Can you name both opponents in which he achieved those feats against?
Well, he broke. You said 2019, right?
Yes.
See, he broke the all-time Falcons receiving record against the Eagles.
He did?
So that it would have to be the Eagles. And then the second time have to be probably Tampa Bay. There's got to be Tampa Bay somewhere in there.
That is incorrect. It was
Okay.
the Titans and the Jaguars. Week 4 against the Titans. Infamous Marcus
Forgettable.
Mariota.
Totally forgettable. I was working in Knoxville, bro.
Can we just mention Aaron's picked 2 questions from 2019? Like,
Yeah.
come on, man. 2019.
I mean, it was a historic year for Julio Jones. He was the all-time Falcons receiver. We're talking about.
Damn sure was a historical year for the franchise.
I mean, you want me to pick 2014? Like, what are we doing? What are we doing?
All right.
All right. Anyway, all right, David, you need to get this one right.
Yeah.
The Falcons traded 5 draft picks to the Cleveland Browns to move up 21 spots in the first round of 2011 to acquire Julio Jones. Can you name 3 of the players the Browns acquired as part of that trade?
If you said all 5, I was going to smack you.
No, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that.
Okay,
Right
so
to the
let me
straight.
go. Greg Little, Brandon Whedon, Owen Marichich, and technically Trent Richardson.
You got 4, so that is correct.
Didn't even
Okay.
name the first one, though.
Phil Taylor was the other one.
Forget Phil Taylor.
Okay.
Because the actual 22nd pick was Whedon, right?
Yeah, Whedon was they traded the pick they got in round 1 in 2011. They traded up to get Phil Taylor.
Yeah.
Then they used the 4th round pick they got in 2012 to trade up to get Trent Richardson.
Okay. Cool. All right, so we're going to overtime.
Yeah, it's on death time. All right, let me set this up. So I'm going to say the question, and then after I say go, you guys just say whatever answer, and whoever gets it right first goes to the finals. So I'm going to say the question, let me say go, and then you guys could just start yelling away. Who had an outrageous 900-yard plus games in 2015? Who did he gain the most yards against in a single game? Go.
Carolina.
Will got it.
Wow. I was going to say Tampa Bay.
Week 16. That was the game where the Kuechly moment happened. Yeah, but 900-yard games in the season. But that Carolina one was the signature performance. Wow. Hell of a win, Will.
Woo! Let's go. Let's go, Julio.
Damn, David, you had an amazing run. You seem pretty bummed out right now. How you feeling, David?
I am bummed out, man. I was going to get a T-shirt. I was going to have a T-shirt. I was going to wear it everywhere. I had a promo to cut. Now I can't cut it. Yeah. Because there's, like you said, there's a personal vendetta. Like, I don't know what it was like in that office when I put that tweet out there. But I stood on what I said about Arthur Smith, and people really were speaking about me in ways that were like, you have my actual number, or some of you actually follow me. You could have just said, hey, do you mind explaining what you meant by this? And instead, everyone jumped on me and said, oh, yeah? Well, how about we check on this tweet at the end of 2023? Okay, so we did. And when I got a chance to be in this tournament, I was like, I'm going to make Falcons Twitter, acknowledge the fact that I'm not just some dude that works in Tampa and I've been a Bucs fan. Like, no, I'm a professional. Like, I'm a Georgia fan that covered Tennessee, and I'm a Falcons fan that covers the Buccaneers now. And I thought this was just a good way to, make my headway through. But Will was a formidable opponent, obviously. I would have gotten the overtime question wrong, because not a single answer was really Tampa Bay.
If
Which is
you only
like,
had 2017.
and the thing was, it was like, there were questions that I thought you guys were going to ask, and you didn't ask it. I thought you were going to be like, Julio led the NFL in catches per game, but in yards per game, but not in yards. And you were going to ask me like, who led the league in yards? If it wasn't Julio, right? Didn't ask that. You didn't ask where Julio's insane 2015 season ranks for all-time catches in a single season. And I'm thinking y'all gonna get that. Y'all talking about when did Julio and Aaron knew. He said, when did he break the record for 11,000, 12,000 yards? I'm never gonna forget that now. Tennessee and Jacksonville of all time.
Wikipedia article.
The AFC South, man, they're gonna haunt you forever.
Just saying, if you read the Wikipedia article, you'll get a couple of answers on my thing. So that's all.
I thought you guys were gonna ask what number Julio wore. That's what I came to this podcast ready to answer.
Oh,
so
man.
Yeah, you can only look at me right now just to answer that correctly with the jersey.
Allen's my boy. He's just been giving me alley-oops all tournament long, and I've just been driving him home.
Well, if it makes you feel better, Will, I have to ask Corey in the farm because Corey beat Aaron. So you will be getting questions from Aaron just because it has to be fair because Aaron's probably still salty from losing to Corey.
No saltiness.
Hey, what's good, Aaron? What's up? How you doing, man?
How you doing?
Yeah, but
We'll
Will,
chat. Let's chat.
We'll talk. Let's talk to the. So you made the finals. Hell of a run.
Can't wait. It's going to be a bloodbath. Honestly, we're here to finish the drill. Taking a real Nick Saban approach, and then we're going to do the dinosaur dance on Corey's corpse.
We have to.
You guys think, in honor of Matty Ice, should we do this collectively from 4 ice baths? Would that be a great podcast? I kind of think it would be.
Kevin Hart might sue us.
That's true. He might.
Gimmick infringement.
We'll have to do it in a cold water, like washer machine, right? What's that? He's the now spokesman.
Get a case of natural ice and natty ice.
Oh, we really should do that. As terrible as that beer is. Oh man, that's actually a great idea.
Terrible.
And Aaron knows a thing or two about terrible beers. So
hey man, I drank a lot of natty ice in college. It was cheap, and it got the job done. So
all right, let's plug away. David, let the listeners know what do you got working on.
Yeah, man. So obviously you guys don't care about the Buccaneers because you're Falcons fans listening to this. So
there will be weeks though. Let people know
I will see the Falcons twice this year. That's when they play Tampa Bay. But if you do want to know what's going on with the Bucs, I'm at Deacon_Schiele on X. I'm also, if you're into video games, I'm 5 Wars Deke. Spell out the number 5 Wars Deke on YouTube. Also starting a faith-based podcast where we're just gonna basically just fellowship and talk about Jesus. And our first guest will be former Georgia punter Jake Camarda. And as I've said before, we are really, really hoping we get a yes from Mike Smith because we've got a lot to talk about with Mike Smith in terms of not just his personal life, but of course his tenure with the Falcons as well. So that's like an official release or whatever will be coming out soon on social, when the launch date is, when you can catch every episode and everything like that. So appreciate you guys for giving me a chance to be in this tournament, of course. I do feel like I've earned a little bit of respect from Falcons Twitter back. But next time I tell you that someone's not a good head coach, just believe me, or if you follow me or have my number, just ask me to give you my argument. And anybody, if I go back and find a receipt, I will call it out.
See, David, this is exactly what I live for, right? When I say a thing, I just want people to believe me. Just don't question it and just believe me. And it's the same thing. So I feel you on this. I was rooting for you the whole time. I wish maybe I had taken it a little bit easier on you, but you did an incredible job. And your pettiness and is you're just a man after my own heart. And so I really appreciate how far you've come in the 10 years that you when you first got on this podcast talking about how Kyle Shanahan is terrible and needs to be fired after blowing that lead against the Chargers or whatever.
Did I say that?
I recall, but I don't. They all blur together.
There's no way I said that.
Maybe you did. I don't remember. I
was like, I don't talk like that.
Well, let the listeners know what you got going on.
Well, I want it on the record as I've never said anything controversial about Arthur Smith. You can go through my entire Twitter and find all of the clean, just very non-polarizing takes that I have about Arthur Smith. No, you guys, we've taken a page out of the Locked On Falcons playbook, but we're not doing it nearly as well as you guys are just yet. But we are going every single day after training camp on Falcons Final Whistle. Today, we talked about conspiracy theories, which are kind of part of the new rookie, plan that they've got going on. So it's like training camp treats and also PowerPoints on conspiracy theories. So we go in and kind of rank our favorite conspiracy theories on today's episode. And then tomorrow we've got an interview with Caden Ellis. So you guys can hear from him. It was a really good interview. And then we'll be out there Friday for practice. Come out to Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Tickets are $5. Come check out the team play. But yeah, we just have coverage every day on AtlantaFalcons.com, Falcons Final Whistle. And I really appreciate you guys having me on. I look forward to coming on to face Corey in the finals.
Quick plug for me. I have a 2-part interview with Tyler Algiera. Something of a yearly tradition we've done. And he's always a blast to talk to. So we talked a lot about the 2023 season. His thoughts on Raheem Morris, Kirk Cousins, his love for bowling, and giving back to the community amongst other topics. So definitely check that out on the Falcaholic.
So, guys, that's going to do it for us here on today's Locked On Falcons. Appreciate David, Will, and Alan joining me. We got one more of these Falcons Historian Player Shootouts, the championship match between Will McFadden and Corey Woodruff, talking all about Matt Ryan. That's probably a couple of weeks away. Later in August, probably after next week. So we'll see when that gets on the schedule, but we'll be back with more content next week, getting you guys geared up for the big week of joint practices between the Falcons and Dolphins and some players to keep an eye on ahead of their upcoming preseason matchup. But you'll also get our next episode will be in your audio feeds where we're reacting to the Friday night practice in the bins with myself, Jarvis Davis, and others over at Locked On Sports Atlanta. So make sure you check that out as we give you a full weekend's worth of content here as your first listen. Continue to make us your first listen by following for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Check out Locked On NFL Scouting with Kyle Krabs, Joe Marino to get the lowdown on team building and how teams are trying to figure out how they build their rosters throughout training camp across the entire NFL. It's all part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.